screen, and you should see on the screen a image with two robots facing each other saying the great debate. And again, this is a simple and very easy way to choose AI for your particular use and whatever use that might be. For today's agenda, we're just going to talk about what AI is and what it isn't. We're going to talk about what the value product analysis is. Excuse me. And then we're actually going to use a custom GPT I've built to just kind of evaluate and get some feedback from you and show you how to use this tool, and then send you off with some awesome resources and opportunities. So before we get started, what questions can I answer? Or do you just want to dive right in?
Well, I'm ready to dive right in.
Perfect. All right, then
Yeah.
let's go ahead and do it. The first thing is let's talk about what AI is and what it isn't, because this is oftentimes where people start to get unreal expectations of what artificial intelligence really does for us inside of our businesses, inside of our schools, and inside of just our everyday use of what we might be creating with it. The thing to keep in mind about AI is that it's not really intelligent. It's not intelligent like we are. When we evaluate something, when we create something, we're taking into account tangible and intangible value propositions. And the best way I like to compare this is if the three of us were looking at a table with a piece of chocolate cake, there are factual considerations about that chocolate cake. It's a particular size, it's a particular shape, it has a certain aroma to it. There are facts related to how much sugar and how much ingredients are used in it, what kind of plate it sits on, what kind of table it sits on. What it doesn't take into account, what AI couldn't evaluate in all of that, is how we might react to those factual statements. I'm a diabetic, so that's a fact that influences my emotional decisions. Katie, I don't know if you like chocolate cake in Missouri or not, right? And Mike, it just might disgust you. I don't know. But the point of all that being is we will evaluate what that cake really is based on a number of things. And Katie has heard me talk about this and say this before, but people make decisions with emotions and then justify it with facts. AI doesn't really do that. AI is just a logical prediction engine. And what that basically means is it takes at lightning, just light speed, takes a billion, trillion different pieces of information and creates the most likely answer to whatever query is being posed to it. So if you ask ChatGPT or Claude or Midjourney, if you're creating images, what is a piece of chocolate cake and why is it good? What ChatGPT would do is take an internet's worth of knowledge that's been uploaded into it and probably give you 10 reasons that are the most likely reasons why that piece of chocolate cake would be good. But it's all factual. It's all algorithmic. It's all data. And there's no feeling behind it. So when you consider what it really is, it's just giving you a logical answer to a logical question. And that's all AI really does. And it uses massive amounts of computer speed and massive amounts of energy and very specialized computer chips to be able to actually process that data in a way that our human minds are just not wired to do, right? And when you take that into account, when you take into account what AI really is, it is less about the prompts that you put in, and it is more importantly about the data that you give the AI to evaluate. So again, we go back to that question. I want to ask ChatGPT what the best kind of chocolate cake is. But what is more important in helping ChatGPT get that right answer for me, or better way to phrase it is an answer that is useful to me is by providing it recipes of what a chocolate cake might be. And of course, I evaluate whether or not those recipes are good recipes or bad, maybe food critics, maybe my personal tastes. And I start to train the chat, I start to train the bot as to the context of what makes good versus bad an evaluative decision. And now the bot starts to take all of that data and make better decisions and create better outputs because it has context, right? If we expect these chat bots to use an internet's worth of knowledge, well, like Abraham Lincoln said, you can't believe everything you read on the internet. So why are we just asking a question of a chatbot and then expecting it to use everything that is found on the internet, created by people that are very intelligent, but also by some people that are very crazy, and then giving us a logical answer? There's no context, there's no ability to provide valuable outputs from that platform. And the Abraham Lincoln joke, of course, is just a joke. I saw it on a meme somewhere, and I think it's very, very poignant for this type of discussion. But the point here is, think about it from a marketing perspective. I see people all of the time say, if you want ChatGPT to do your marketing for you, here's an easy way to do it. Go into ChatGPT and write a prompt that says, give me 30 headlines I can use in an image. And then it'll give you 30 headlines, and then you drop it into some sort of design program, and all of a sudden you have 30 pieces of content. But that content is meaningless because it doesn't know who you're trying to speak to. It doesn't know what emotions you're trying to convey. It doesn't know to what end you're trying to create that content. So you just ask ChatGPT to give you 30 pieces of meaningless information. On the other hand, when you train ChatGPT to think like a marketer who is educating potential real estate agents on how to pass the test and set a platform for success in their life, all of a sudden now that marketing content becomes far, far more personal. And so when you understand what you can do with AI and what it really is, you can start to make better choices and start to use the tool that we're going to talk about here in a second to evaluate these platforms much more effectively. So just remember, AI is not a person. It is a computer algorithm, essentially. And if you ask it to make decisions, which it is good at, in terms of what information is best, give it context. When you train your AI, you have to know that you have to tell it what to do, tell it how to do it, and give it context as to why that what to do and how to do it is important, and what can be considered a good product. And now you know that the way you train your AIs and the outputs it gives you after training is how you can start to evaluate its effectiveness. But you have to remember that. You just simply have to remember that. With that said, let's talk about something, a very simple framework we call the value product analysis, which is essentially a tool that we use to list and keep track of AI platforms that we may find, that we may identify, and that we may start to use internally. And all it is just a simple spreadsheet that calculates a score based on 3 individual factors. And we'll actually start to use this in our demonstration. But it's based off of an engineering tool called a failure modes effect analysis that we used to use in an engineering firm I worked in 20 years ago when I was a program manager that was not an engineer, but had the responsibility for managing these programs. And in those particular cases, this tool was helping us prevent problems from occurring in the products that we were building. And so all we identified were the potentially biggest problems, and then we figured out ways to prevent those problems from existing. And the reason being is because when you look at a failure of a particular product, you generally find that about 80% of your problems exist in about 15 to 20% of the causes. And so you handle those big causes and you fix most of your problems. And the same thing applies here. The most valuable, the most useful, where you will spend about 80% of your time in an AI platform and get about 80% of your value is from just a few separate platforms. And so why not help you identify those in a way that will allow you to consistently update your tool chest so that you're using something that is good for you? Because there are literally thousands of AI platforms out there, and not all of them are good. And more importantly, even among the good ones, they're not all useful for you. So essentially, what you do is you evaluate the value of it, and basically, how much do you get out of it? What kind of features do you get compared to the price? What's the ease of use? In other words, how easy is it for you to just immediately start jumping in and using this thing with very little instruction or very focused instructions? And what's the quality of what it produces? In other words, when you understand what AI platform really is, and you give it what it needs, does it produce what you need at the end of that production line? And the nice thing about it is that it's flexible and dynamic, which means it's a strategic planning tool. You can use it every quarter, you can use it every month. You and your team, or you and your mastermind, or you and your colleagues can update this document and talk about it every periodic, uh, over a periodic stretch of time to update and evaluate what you're using and whether or not you're getting out of it what you really need to get out of it. Now, all of that said, are we ready to do some battle? Mike, Katie, you ready to start evaluating and start giving some feedback on these different AI platforms?
Sure.
Awesome. So that said, to do this, we're going to use what's called the Boss Mode Course Creator. This is actually a custom GPT that I've created inside of two different platforms. The process is built, and we're going to use this inside of two different platforms, Claude and ChatGPT, to evaluate using this framework that we've talked about. What's important to know is that we're just going to go through and we're just going to create the courses, and then we'll go back and evaluate using this framework as a discussion amongst us. But I'm not going to teach you today how to create projects and custom GPTs. That's actually coming up in our next webinar next month. But for now, we're just going to use what we've created. We're going to evaluate the outputs, and then we're going to make a decision on whether or not this is something that is good for us to use. So let me go ahead and pull up the tool here. So we have the tool here, the value product analysis. And we're going to call this one ChatGPT, or we're going to label this ChatGPT. We're going to label this Claude. There's a category in here, and you can update these categories pretty effectively. You just click on the little edit button here, and then you can add more categories or take out categories as much as you need to. But you just essentially choose which category it falls into. And both of these are chat categories. So this would allow us the ability to filter out anything that isn't a chat category. And then we just give it a description, right? So it's just I'm just going to call it a general AI chatbot for information purposes, right? And I might do the same thing down here as well, right? And then we just evaluate here, which we'll come back and evaluate, and then we'll select the score will be populated afterwards. So, and then for notes, I'll just add something like, tested with boss mode course creator, right? You see, it's just a very easy thing for us to use. So let's go ahead and go into ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT, the custom course creator, we just get started by saying, I need to write a real estate course. And then it'll go through the process. So we want to explain the topic of the course. Oh, and it just restarted, right? So we want to create a topic of the course, right? So one of you two, I'm going to just go to you, Mike, because Katie, we talk about this stuff all the time. What's a course topic that you would want to create?
Oh, so many good ones. Maybe agency law, uh, presentation with what's going on.
Okay, let's say that. Let's create a course on agency law. Let's keep it nice and vague, right? So now we're going to choose subtopics. So we want to choose between 3 to 5 subtopics on this law. So we've got introduction to agency law, creations of the agency relationships, duties of agents and principals, termination of agency. If you were to choose three of those topics, subtopics, which ones would you choose? And again, remember, this is just demonstration purposes, right?
Introductions, duties, and agency disclosure and confidentiality.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I'm now telling the chat, all right, we're going to choose subtopics 1, 3, and 4. Now we want to choose a theme, right? And a theme, it gives some suggestions of themes here, but a theme could be anything related to, maybe you want to have a thematic purpose around stone, right? Maybe you're a former stonemason. I don't know. Or maybe you're a former police officer. So maybe you want to do it about law and order. It could be anything. What sort of theme would you like to choose?
Uh, Compliance.
Okay. So let's see, let's use a theme oriented around order and uh, complying with authority. Right. And again, it's it is what it is. It is what it is in terms of all of this stuff. So what it's now going through is actually creating a timed course for a 3-hour course by giving you individual modules. And so it tells you, um, what each of those hours add up to, what the learning objective is, what the method is, gives you some suggested slides that you can use as well as the time. So at this point, we've written a course, and you can take this outline and make whatever sort of modifications you need to make to it, and then potentially submit it to your real estate commission in the format that you have to submit it, and potentially get it approved, or take this outline, create your slides and your learning materials, and focus on that, as opposed to having to ideate about how to create this course. Now, the quality of this course, based on what you assume, uh, is entirely up to you. But here we have a course outline, right? And it took us a couple of minutes to do. And what I'll do is when I send out the resources for this course, I'll actually send out this as a separate document just for you to be able to evaluate. But here we have basics and definitions for 15 minutes. And the learning objective is to understand the basic concepts and definitions related to the law. So you have some slides here. I mean, does this look like it's along the lines of what you were thinking to be able to teach a course like that?
It pretty much looks like a standard agency course. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. So okay, so there we go. We've run through and we've created that inside of ChatGPT, right? So fantastic. Now let's go to Claude, and Katie, you're going to help us write a course in Claude. So what do we want to write a course on? Oh, you are.
I'm on.
Yep, there you go.
I will say, just the basics, I guess, fair housing.
Okay. On fair housing. Okay, so Claude is going through, and Claude is just another platform that basically you do the same thing that you do with ChatGPT. It's just kind of built a little bit differently. So it's asking here, I'd be happy to help you write that course. It's important that we clarify the specific topic of the course. So it's doing something different than what ChatGPT is doing already, right? ChatGPT, we said, let's create a course on agency law. And it says, all right, let's go right into it. Choose your subtopics. Whereas Claude is saying, all right, let's clarify this topic, right? What specific aspect of fair housing would you like this course to focus on? The history and evolution of fair housing laws, current fair housing regulations, fair housing issues and property management, avoiding discrimination, or fair housing compliance for real estate professionals. Do any of those tickle your fancy or something a little bit more specific?
Well, uh, I would say let's do the number 3.
Okay. So here it's already giving us a little bit more detail to choose from. So we potentially could choose
Mhm.
5 different topics and create 5 different courses on this one general topic, right? So we're going to tell the chat, let's do number 3. Fantastic. It says, thanks for specifying. And then it's asking us to confirm. So again, it's taking a different step than what chat is, and say, yeah, confirmed. And that's all I'm going to say, right? So then Claude will then come back and come up with the next step. And you can see here that it's thinking, thanks for clarifying the topic. And now it gives us 10 potential subtopics to choose from. And it's asking us to choose 3 to 5, right? And it tells you each subtopic will take approximately 1 hour of instruction time. So any of those that you'd like to choose, again, we're using it for evaluation purposes, so you can choose whichever ones you want to.
Let's do 1, 2, and 5.
Okay, perfect. So great. Thanks for choosing your subtopics. And it just asks for confirmation again. Is it confirmed? And we'll just say confirmed, right? And then it will ask for a theme, right? So here it's giving us a couple of themes: building bridges, the fair housing toolbox, navigation, fitness, and a playlist. Are any of those themes anything that might stand out to you, or is there another thematic element that you would like to tie this around?
Number 1.
Okay. And again, it'll go through and it'll ask us to confirm. All right. And is this correct? Yes. So in here, it gives us the title, the topic, the theme, what the desired objective of the course is. It gives us the subtopic, gives us modules, and it just goes through and creates the same sort of thing, right? And here, when we scroll over on the tables, you can see we have the title of that particular module, what the learning objective is, what the method, the active learning method might be, the time, and then the list of slides, right? Suggested slides for that particular. But you can see that the presentation is laid out a little bit differently, but kind of along the lines of what you were thinking about as well, in terms of, I mean, it's a little bit harder to read,
Sure.
but again, blueprint for fair screening, reinforcing equality, communicating decisions fairly. And then when we talk about strengthening connections, building a complaint process, conflict resolution, following up and preventing future issues. I mean, it seemed like a pretty standard course on fair housing.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So there we go. We've just now created an output for both. And so in using the platforms in the span of just a couple of minutes for both different platforms, we can now go back and update this document, right? So we tested with Boss Mode Course Creator. We might add notes here that Mike was our guinea pig and he wanted to create a course on agents. Thought the output was pretty standard. All right. And in this case, right, Katie was the guinea pig, wrote a course on fair housing, and she thought output was pretty standard. So now we have the ability to evaluate. So in terms of ease of use, what would you two rate both of those platforms on? With one being hard to use and 10 being easy to use. I mean, I know where I would rate both of them. I'd rate them both a 10 because I use them all the time, right? But in terms of what I just showed you and how I went through it, what would you both consider?
Out of the two different chats,
Yeah. So
I mean,
ChatGPT and Claude.
I think I like the way the outline looked on ChatGPT better.
Okay, so when we talk about outputs, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that here. But in terms of, I mean, they both seem relatively simple to use, right? You chatted
Yeah.
with it, you had a chat with the conversation. You didn't have to do a lot of programming or anything like that. You just kind of answered questions, and went from it from there. So I'm going to mark both here an 8, right? At the end of the day, they probably could be a little bit better here and there.
Sure.
Now, from value, both are $20 a month, right? They both give you pretty much the same aspects of it. ChatGPT would give you some different features like the ability to use Dolly and whatnot. But I'd probably rate the same here. They're both probably 9s in terms of their value, right? Now, in terms of their outputs, Katie, you said ChatGPT had a better outline in terms of what it output. What about the quality of the information? I mean, again, we went through this pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, and I was
Um,
part of it. I skipped out. My dogs were.
no problem. So, I
Yeah.
mean, here's that first course, and what I'll do is I'm gonna share this link into the chat so that you can click on it and see it. And let me do the same with Claude. I believe I can share. Yep. Oh, let me see if you can access this one. You might not be able to, so.
No, says not found.
Yeah, it might be the case, because you're not part of the group, right? Which may update the ease of use, right? Claude, maybe we bump it down to a 7, right? Because or even a 6, because hey, we can't share the chat with somebody to be able to look at like we can with ChatGPT. Now I will tell you my evaluations on the outputs, and I'm again a little biased from this. The outputs from Claude for me and the course layout, the way it looks, yeah, it's not quite as compact as what it is for ChatGPT, but it's much more. It's each of the outputs from each step align with the instructions of how this AI was trained. So again, remember, each of these particular projects or custom GPTs, they were both trained on the same knowledge base. They were both trained on the same instructions. They're both given uh, the same information on how to create this process. I will tell you from my perspective, Claude creates a much better course because it's much more aligned with the instructions that we've given it. It's given us themes that are create a better thematic element to what we're doing. The courses are much simpler. The slides are much more detailed in terms of helping us build a presentation. And it just gives us a better output. But the ease of use is less because you have to scroll over and things like that. And here you compare this here. Suggested slides. You got definitions, types of agents, and types of principles. Whereas here we've got Fair Housing of 1968 timeline, key figures in housing history, major amendments and updates, impact of fair housing laws on property management, current state of fair housing. I mean, the slides here that if I was trying to explain a topic, I mean, I have a lot of stuff to work with that the chat gave me. Whereas here, it didn't help me quite create as much, right? It didn't give me active learning techniques. It says lecture, group discussion, case study analysis, but it's the same all the way down pretty much, except for the final one that kind of varies between that. Whereas here, it gives me a couple of different methods, right? Brainstorming, small group, role playing, peer review, critique, writing workshop. I mean, so it starts to give you a lot more active learning techniques. So for me, the output always comes down to, I always give ChatGPT about a 6, and I give Claude like a 9, right? I mean, that's how I evaluate it. But Katie, you had a question.
I do. This, where is the information coming from for each of these? So in terms of
Yep.
plagiarism and et
Yeah,
cetera.
yeah. So in the AI persona course creator, it's easier to show you a little bit here. But in both of these, there's a knowledge base that we've uploaded, right? So I have a knowledge base manual. I have a knowledge base on Bloom's taxonomy. And I have a knowledge base on persona training. So I actually give it instructions on how to act. Remember, every AI platform to really be used effectively needs to be told what to do, how to do it, and given context. So here it's what to do or how to do it. This is the context, and then we add custom instructions here. So and these knowledge-based manuals, they were actually just built from public sources on the internet, right? So like blogs and things like that. And then I dropped it into ChatGPT and then wrote out a technical manual for myself.
So I can put Bloom's taxonomy in
Yeah.
ChatGPT and say, based on Bloom's taxonomy,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And more than likely, these platforms have been trained on that sort of information already.
Mhm.
But we uploaded that here.
Yeah, because that's what
this same information here, these same instructions here have been given to ChatGPT too.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. And the back end of ChatGPT has all of the same information. And it gives this output, which I just don't think is as good. I just don't, if I was to submit a course, it would take me far more work to submit this. Whereas I would feel like if I went back and submitted this, I could almost submit this pretty quickly here to the commission here in Georgia and get a course approved, right? Or pretty close to it. I might have to tweak it here and there. You never take what AI gives you and never review it. But this would be far better for me to be able to submit to the real estate commission and just start running with it. So generally speaking, though, that evaluative technique, you can use this all the way down because there are image generation platforms. I mean, you have Dolly inside of ChatGPT that you can use. You have Midjourney. You have all of these different things. And now we have a systemic way to be able to evaluate which platforms are best. So suppose we had just a bunch of different platforms all the way down, and maybe we had a couple of audio and a couple of graphics. Maybe this one was copywriting and a video and an audio and all the way down to stuff like that. I'm just filling stuff out. Right? We can filter out all of the ones that are not chat. So we just filter out the chat And there we go. We like here are all the ones that we have on our list, and these are the evaluations that we have for that.
Mhm.
Maybe we filter out, maybe we're comparing chatbots or all of the different AI platforms that we use, and so we're just clicking everything, and then we sort it, right? And again, we see everything that we have here, and then we could just simply sort here from high to low, and be able to evaluate which scores come in the highest, and then say, all right, this is the platform that we're going to start to invest time in learning, or maybe working with somebody, or start training our staff on how to use, or start training myself on how to use, or maybe take courses online on how to use. All this is, this is not something that teaches you how to use AI. It's simply an organizational tool to be able to help you make strategic decisions on what type of AI you use. I mean, I don't want to sell this thing as like, oh my God, it's the greatest tool in the world. It's a strategic tool. But correct me if I'm wrong, you probably get talked to about AI every single day. You have to do this, you have to use this, you have to create this. And my guess is you both probably don't have the damnedest clue on how to sit there and get through all the muck to try to come to some sort of conclusion about what you're going to use and why you're going to use it. Am I correct in that assessment, Mike?
Yeah, in a sense, but I see more of it. I see the value to it, but I really see in a sense of me still having to play around
Correct.
with them. And the reason I say that is this is the first time I've really seen Claude
Gotcha.
because I use Chat rather than Claude.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not even really sure what it would do to make those analysis. You know, this
So,
is
and that actually brings up a great thing here is that there is a website called There's an AI for that. I think it's There's an AI for that. Yep, there we go. And this is basically a clearinghouse website of all of the different AI platforms that exist out there. But this is the thing that frustrates me about when people talk about AI as a marketing tool, as a planning tool, as anything like that, is everybody goes to ChatGPT because ChatGPT is a market leader, right? I mean, they were first to market with the product. And it's pretty good considering what it is. But there are others out there that should be compared. I mean, it's like saying I will only drink one particular product because that's what I grew up drinking, right? Or I might go to McDonald's. The only restaurant I'll go to is McDonald's because I went to McDonald's as a kid. I mean, that's essentially what's being used here. However, you should go out and play around with things and evaluate how useful it is for you. Because here's the thing, ChatGPT and Claude are the same thing. There's also Meta.ai, right? Did you know Facebook has their own chat platform that allows you to do the same thing that you can do on Claude and ChatGPT? And oh, by the way, it's free. Now, there's different functionalities to it. There's different ways of using it, but its output product is actually a little bit better than Claude, right? So if you settle for just one platform and never evaluate what it is that you use, you sell yourself short. Now, the problem is by telling you to go out and constantly test things, you're spending more time testing and less time using. And in reality, what you should do is you should use this value product analysis to really test what AI you're using every 3 months or so. And then over the next 3 months, make a decision on what you're going to use understand why you're going to use it, and then go out and play around with it, and then come back and update this. So what we essentially do is we just come back and we just say, hey, have you started using anything else out there? And then I ask staff, or I ask people I work with to fill this out, right? So maybe they say, yeah, maybe I've been using Meta.ai for the last couple of weeks and it's been amazing, right? So they'll come in and they'll fill all of this stuff out in this document, and they'll fill out their evaluations, and they'll come back with a product score that gives us a way to compare to the other two, right? And then they'll add some notes, and we'll say, all right, we're going to make a strategic decision here. The score is roughly the same as Claude. It's a new platform. It doesn't provide a lot of value, but it gives great outputs, and it's really easy to use, right? Or maybe in that course of that conversation, we learned that it actually has much better value than we assumed. And now here it provides a much better product score. And so we evaluate it. Again, the thing about all of this stuff is that there is so much out there that people are going to tell you things that are incorrect. People are going to tell you things that are ignorant of what capabilities you have. And most importantly, they're going to tell you things from their perspective. They're not going to sit there and tell you how to use these platforms from your perspective. But you need to have a tool that helps you capture that information in your thoughts. So, Mike, you are correct in that assessment that you do have to go around and play with these things, but you're going to have to do that anyway in whatever you do. And here's the other thing about this tool that I think is incredibly amazing. You can actually duplicate this, and now you can change this. You can change these to learning management. What LMS? LMS, is that what y'all call them? Yeah. Learning management systems. So you can just go in here and change the category to online or whatever, right? If you have a category, or you can just update these to be one category, and then you can describe what that LMS platform is, and then you can go through and evaluate ease of use, the value, and the outputs, or essentially what it produces for you and your students, to be able to say, all right, this LMS platform is better for me. See, the problem with any sort of product solution is you know this. You have people constantly trying to sell you crap. Constantly. So why not protect yourself against the crap? This is a simple way that you can do it. And we use it for AI, but you can honestly cross-apply this to anything inside of your real estate school so that you're choosing the best products and the best services for you, yourself, and your students. So, and you'll get this tool as part of the output from today's course. So, now, what other questions, comments can we discuss? And we have about 10, 15 minutes left. You look like you wanted to say something, Kay.
Yeah, I was just going to make a point or a comment that I was teaching a tech class the other day for continuing ed for real estate agents, and one of them said that they use AI to write their ads.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, that's really great. But then now from what you're saying, I would have liked to have said, how do you do that? And how are you, just who are you targeting, et cetera, just like you said, because it does make, you can do all you want, but who are you sending it to?
Correct. That's
So
exactly
I
it.
appreciate
So
that. Yeah.
that's exactly it. And again, that conversation of, all right, that's great. I'm glad you're using AI. Like, what platform are you using? I can tell you that I spend easily easily 20 hours a week using AI in a variety of different ways, right? Whether from image creation to chat to 11 labs for audio. I mean, I live in this world. I mean, I'm going through a process right now of getting a certification in AI branding, right? I've got the first part of the course done. I'm finishing up the second part of the course and in a live workshop with it. I mean, it's easily 1,000 hours a year of this stuff, which is about half of the working time that people have, right? Easily. Um, it blows my mind that people just are still so wowed by all of this that nobody's given them an ability to evaluate what's useful and what's not.
Mhm.
But I can tell you this, that when you learn how to evaluate what's useful and what's not, the potential for you to make a tremendous amount of money, it just goes through the roof in two ways. One, you can create a lot more products and services that people find value in. And two, it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to do it. And we'll talk about here in a moment about that course creator, because you could literally use that course creator to create 5 new courses per week and then sell them at 15 bucks a pop. And now you have an entire curriculum library, whether or not they're CE courses or not. There are going to be agents that are willing to pay 15 bucks for a course that you created, and it took you 2 hours of work to do it. So, like I said, you'll get this tool. It'll come in the resources with the recording of this call. But it's just a foundational tool to help you get your thoughts in order. I mean, that's really it. But the problem is nobody who is an expert in this stuff ever helps people to get their thoughts in order. They just talk about how cool it is. And that really does create a challenge and a problem for folks because you just get stuck. So